Were you born to be a sprinter or a marathoner? It might depend on the type of muscle fibers that you were born with. This lesson is on about energy for muscle contraction and the effect of exercise on muscles. So, creatine phosphate is produced in a resting muscle, and its breakdown produces the required supply of ATP for muscle contraction. So, every contraction of a muscle requires ATP. The breakdown of creatine phosphate is used first by the muscle to provide an immediate supply of energy until sufficient oxygen can be brought to the mitochondria in the muscles and aerobic respiration can occur. Once they have an ample supply of oxygen, the creatine phosphate molecule can be rebuilt and then stored again for later use. Our muscle cells undergo aerobic respiration, and this is where most of the required energy for muscle contraction comes from, and it comes from the mitochondria in our muscle cells. Myoglobin in the muscles has a high efficiency for oxygen, and oxygen readily moves into the muscles for use in the mitochondria. In the mitochondria, oxygen is going to combine with glucose to make ATP energy and carbon dioxide, which will be excreted as waste. So, oxygen and glucose enter the mitochondria in the muscle cell, and ATP energy and carbon dioxide leave the muscle cells. Under extreme circumstances, the body isn't able to provide enough oxygen to the muscles for aerobic respiration. And in these conditions, anaerobic respiration occurs. This is when there's insufficient oxygen supplied to the muscles. And it can be when we have very rapid but short, intense energy usage, such as weightlifting or sprinting, or during the end of very long aerobic respiration when our breathing and respiration and heart rate isn't able to keep up with the demands for oxygen. The product of anaerobic respiration in humans results in the production of lactic acid. And this has long been thought to be the cause of muscle cramps and fatigues. However, it's now thought that the inability to generate enough ATP for the transport of calcium back into the sarcoplasm might be responsible for this. So, when we don't have that calcium, when we can't remove that calcium, we end up with muscle cramps because we have continued contraction. So if calcium remains attached to the tropomyosin, the muscle's unable to relax. So even after our exercise is complete, we often will still breathe hard and have a rapid heart rate for several minutes. This is a result of oxygen debt due to our exercise, as well as getting rid of the excess carbon dioxide in our system. So if there's a buildup of lactic acid in the muscles during an anaerobic workout, the creatine phosphate stores will also have to be rebuilt. Lactic acid can be broken down by combining with oxygen. So even after a strenuous workout, the body still needs a lot of oxygen to break down the lactic acid that has been accumulating in the muscle tissues. Now, this is why they'll recommend a cool down after your workout or after your sporting event. So training by athletes reduces their oxygen deficit because it improves their cardiovascular efficiency. More oxygen is able to be transferred to the muscles. And also, you can increase the number of mitochondria in your cells due to increased usage. Now, occasionally some people will get a muscle twitch. Now, this is when your muscles are contracting because of an electrical nerve impulse to the individual muscle fibers within a muscle. So you might have a muscle twitch in like your eyelid or just one in your muscle, and there's just a little tiny twitch there. Now, the entire muscle is not going to contract unless there's a sufficient signal from the muscle's associated nerve, and this is known as the threshold level. So if the threshold level is reached, then the muscle fiber contracts and relaxes in a fraction of a second. The individual muscle fibers contract in an all or none manner. There's the stimulus, a small latent period, then the actual contraction of the muscle, and then the relaxation period. And then in a muscle twitch, this is normally just part of our muscle. Stimulation of the whole muscle is more complex. The strength of contraction depends on the number of fibers that contract. If a muscle receives a series of stimulations, the muscle twitches add together so that the whole muscle maintains contraction. And now this continues until the muscle fatigues. So multiple muscle fibers contracting at the same time due to multiple stimuli, resulting in the whole muscle contracting. When we look at our types of skeletal muscle fibers, we have two main types. We have slow twitch fibers and fast twitch fibers. Training can change the proportion of the different types of fibers, but genetics plays a much greater role. Slow twitch fibers tend to contract slowly but resist fatigue. And this is most helpful in endurance sports, cross-country skiing, long-distance running, long-distance swimming. They tend to have more mitochondria, denser capillary beds, and contain lots more myoglobin, which is the red meat of our muscles, because they tend to do much more of their work in the presence of oxygen. They have a good reserves of glycogen and fats and only fatigue when they run out of carbohydrate fuel. So these are our slow twitch fibers. Fast twitch fibers are large diameter fibers adapted for rapid generation of power for sprinting, weightlifting, and power strokes. They have fewer mitochondria and less dense capillary networks, so less oxygen is able to come to these areas. So they do tend to do most of their work anaerobically. Reliance on anaerobic respiration causes accumulation of lactate, and therefore those would fatigue quickly. Okay, looking at the effects of exercise and muscles, regular exercise can have two different effects. One, it can increase the size of muscles, which is known as hypertrophy. It can also improve the muscle's ability to generate energy more efficiently by increasing the amount of mitochondria and enzymes present in the muscles. Hypertrophy is the technical term given to the growth of muscles in size due to an increase in the size of individual muscle fibers. Now, we typically don't increase the amount of muscle fibers we have, but we can encourage those muscle fibers to grow in size. It involves the synthesis or formation of more actin and myosin, which results in thicker myofibrils. When those myofibrils reach a certain size, they split, and the effect is bigger, stronger muscle fibers. So here's some images of hypertrophy where people have worked out and have increased the size of their muscles. Atrophy occurs when muscles are not used. So the muscle fibers become smaller, decreasing in their strength. And if this occurs over a long period of time, muscles can even die. Atrophied muscles can be returned to a normal state with exercise, but dead muscle cells cannot be replaced. So increasing our muscles efficiency. This comes about because of an increase in the number of active muscle enzymes and a number and activity of the muscle enzymes and the mitochondria. So an improved vascular system and storage of more fuel in the muscle, so more glycogen. We've improved our vascular system. We have more capillary beds. And we can also improve our vascular system through cardiovascular exercise. Our heart is more efficient and our lungs are more efficient. Training is going to reduce the buildup of lactic acid and prolong the period of activity before fatigue occurs. Thanks for joining our presentation today on muscles and exercise. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.